Ladies, welcome back to Powerhouse Bakery. Yay! It's so fun to have you back in my house. And we have a very special guest. As you all know, we've been going through the world of the Mediterranean, and of course now we're learning about Italian food, and we are so blessed to have a brand new diva among us who is first generation Italian. Wait till she talks, you can tell. She has the most beautiful accent and the most beautiful smile, and I absolutely love her. And so she is going to be helping us because, as you know, these are all new to me, just like for all of us. And so, like I said, we are so lucky to have Miss Linda. So she's going to help us with the beautiful rice dish that we have below. First, I'm going to show you the caponata. Did I say that right? Caponata. And I want to find out if any of you ladies cooked it at home. Anybody? Yes, yes? The Arancini? Caponata? I know a few of you did. And what I love is that your hubbies liked it, and maybe your families. Did anybody have a recipe that they will definitely want to do again? Yeah? Yeah, you'll do it again? Good. Well, and so, of course, I still have been researching and learning about all these different styles. And I thought it was hilarious that last night when I was watching one, the caponata is thought of as a way to get rid of a bunch of old vegetables. Isn't that funny? And so, what better use of eggplant than to throw it in and cook it up and add a bunch of other things to hide its flavor? Because I know several of you are a little leery about eggplant. Yes, because it has an unusual texture. And so I'm hoping that this will wow your taste buds and you'll realize that it was so much better than you imagined and that it has such a great history. So one thing for sure is there's lots of different approaches to this caponata. You've seen perhaps some, and I probably even talked about it last time. Sometimes the chefs will really work the eggplant. They'll fry it first, or they'll bake it or roast it. I chose the recipe today that doesn't do either of those, just drops it right in the skillet, but also uses onion. Onion, either you can start with it pre-cooked and just assemble, which is what I'm going to do here, or you could really build in your skillet with starting with the eggplant already cooked. Now, interesting in this recipe, the pine nuts and the raisins, sometimes currants, are in this. And we have the green olives, and who remembers the little tiny, what I thought was maybe a peppercorn, but it's actually probably its very own creature. Who remembers what that's called on our grocery shopping trip? Capers, yes. Capers and green olives. This one has balsamic vinegar. And remember I told you about a balsamic vinegar that I love, and it's a very rich, probably reduced. So it's a little more expensive, but it's got great flavor. So that's the one I use there. It also calls for a little bit of sugar. Here at Powerhouse Bakery, I'm using some coconut sugar. And this one also calls for a little bit of cocoa. Did anybody use cocoa in theirs? No, I know. I thought that sounded so fantastic. And then, of course, we're going to finish off the recipe with fresh basil and fresh chopped tomatoes. Again, a lot of the recipes vary. Some of them want you to use big beefsteak tomatoes. Who on earth would want to cook those down? Not me. So I used a really good quality organic pureed tomato, which is really what you'd end up doing. So if you started with the beefsteak, you'd put them in your food processor and add a little bit of water, and voila, you'd get what we have here. So olive oil, a little bit of broth, and of course those other ingredients that I mentioned are what we're going to assemble in our skillet. And so hopefully you have your notes. Jose was kind enough to make us copies. And so on this particular recipe, it takes about an hour to cook. So I'm speeding it up, which is why I've pre-cooked a little bit. But after we finish up this little assembly, I want us all to go back to the production areas. We're going to break up in teams and have you each experiment with making the risotto, learning how to stir and have lots of patience. We probably won't be able to finish all of it in an hour, but I want you to get a feel for what it looks like. I want you to be able to cut the eggplant and kind of just get a feel for the ingredients. Sound okay? All right, so let's rock and roll. So we always start with a nice hot skillet, and I'm going to add a little bit of my pre-prepped eggplant. There we go, a good sizzle. And it probably doesn't need any more olive oil at this point. Then I'm going to add in my shallots, onion, and garlic that I already prepared. Look at that. So the recipe wants you to cook the eggplant for about 20 minutes. I feel like it probably needs closer to 30. Now I did leave this on for about 25 minutes, but the good thing is when you're cooking it in stages, it's continuing the cooking process. So if I were to start with the raw onion, and I've already cooked my eggplant 15 minutes or so, it makes sense that it's gonna continue the cooking process, so probably about 30 minutes. The next thing I'm gonna do is add in my tomato sauce. And if you're reading your recipe, it should tell you how many ounces of tomato sauce. I believe it's 18 ounces. Down at the very bottom, 680 grams of, or 15 ounces in the jar, right? So that's just about right. There we go. So look how beautiful that is. Now also notice that I did not peel the eggplant. I kept the peel on. Now when we make our ratatouille here at the bakery, we sometimes take off some of the peel. But I just think it adds such beauty and color to that. So now I'm just blending them together. And I have my heat on medium. So it's really bubbling nicely. The next thing I'm going to do is make my sweet and sour sauce. So here's my balsamic. And anybody want to call out how many ounces or how much balsamic? 1 tablespoon. So there we go. That's 1 tablespoon. And how much chocolate am I going to add? 2 teaspoons. Good. Here's my teaspoon. 1, 2. So we are very official in Paris Bakery. We do the scoop and shake. The scoop and shake. All right. So now I'm going to add this in. Also, there's one other thing I need to add into this little mixture, and that will be my sugar. I'm going to add a little bit less because that balsamic is already fairly sweet. So I'll probably, how much sugar does it call for? Tablespoons. So I'm going to start with 2 teaspoons because, again, we don't want it to be overpoweringly sweet. How many teaspoons in a tablespoon? Anybody know? Woohoo! You guys are good. Yes. So it's sizzling away. Now, in the description, they want you to cook it down until all the liquid from your tomato absorbs. And we are right there. If I can show you how pretty this pan looks. See how there's not a lot of moisture hanging around the edges. So that's really how we love it. And there's a big chunk of tomato there. And in another minute, I'm going to add in my chopped tomato. But see how it's starting to look real silky. So somebody call out how much olive oil is in this recipe. Can you add up the 2 intervals? Should be a couple tablespoons. Yes, extra virgin. So I probably added a tiny bit more than that. But again, it's always based on how much moisture is in your skillet. So when I was cooking the eggplant, I love to use my little squirt bottle. So I did measure it. You can see there, that's about 2 tablespoons that I took out. But, you know, you want to be able to do a little adjustment as needed. But look how pretty that's starting to get. Can you smell it? It's starting to smell so good. Okay, so now you speedy readers, you probably are seeing what's next. After I add in the sweet and sour, now I get to start adding in the little chunkies. So here I've got my capers. This recipe does not include capers, but because we bought them, I thought, holy cow, we can't leave them out. I was so excited to try them. So how much olives does the recipe call for? 4 ounces. So that's exactly 4 ounces. And then I threw in a little bit of capers. So you won't tell if I didn't follow the recipe exact? Okay, don't tell. So that was exactly 4 ounces of olives and then about a tablespoon of capers. Now, I also used low sodium vegetable broth. So I think the salt ratio is going to come out just right because this was very little salt. When I cooked the eggplant, because I used no salt in this, I did add a teaspoon of salt to eggplant. So make a note of that. Exactly. The olives and the capers, right? Both salty. So we want to be careful we don't over salt. That's why I was mentioning we can always add a little salt at the end. How do you take salt out? If you're lucky. And there's no potato in this recipe, so you're kind of up a creek without a paddle, as they say. Okay, so now I have my pine nuts and my currants or raisins left. Look at this. It's just going to be so fabulous. And maybe I could ask Mary Jonas to help me get some plates to pass out. I want you to get to sample this. And Linda, if you don't mind passing the forks and the plates over to my wonderful Mary, she can help me pass out some samples. Look at this. It's just looking gorgeous. I'm going to get the last little bit of my chocolate. So, of course, I did speed up the process, right? It made it a little bit faster because I already cooked a lot of the ingredients. Now I'm going to put in my fresh tomatoes because I just love the color. What's the last ingredient that I need to put in that's fresh? Yes, the basil. Yes, look how pretty. So some of the recipes I noticed aren't very pretty because they don't add in as much of the color from the fresh vegetable. So again, the one you have in front of you does not have the fresh tomato, which I felt like it just needed it. And now we're going to add in some of this beautiful fresh basil. So notice when we buy basil, it has water at the bottom. And if you buy basil that is not in a cup like this, you still want to cut the ends just like you would do fresh flowers and then put them in a container like this. I noticed Philip keeps these containers at our bakery. And then whenever we get large bushels of basil, we can kind of prepare our own. And they last so much better. So now I'm going to turn down my heat and I'm just going to tear. Notice I'm not chopping the basil. Super important to not chop the basil. Why do you think I say that? What happens to the basil when you chop it? It gets brown. It gets bruised. So we want to use the whole leaf as much as we can. When the leaves are large like this, we just gently tear them and they stay so much better. Now, something about caponata, just like other dishes with tomato base, they're so much better the next day. So one thing that this chef recommends is the first time you have this dish, use it as an appetizer. Just eat a little bit of it. The next time you serve it, that's when you could have it, kind of as a main dish, maybe served over some pasta or some polenta or rice. And then if you have some leftover after that, serve it with your eggs in the morning. Doesn't that sound fantastic? So gone are the days where we just have boring eggs. Now we can add our caponata to it. All right, so we're going to go through the recipe and make sure I have everything in and see if there's anything missing. And then I want you guys to get to sample.
So Suzanne, question. I know this might be totally off the wall, but can you add any kind of meat in there? Just if you have meat eaters at home that really don't want just...
Of course.
What would you suggest to add?
What would you suggest?
Well, I would think turkey would be
Yeah.
better.
I'm even thinking sausage. I mean, Mediterranean style is a little bit of a very high flavored, higher fat meat. You could even use a vegan sausage if you want to be so bold, right? They do.
Yeah.
Of course they do. But look how pretty this is. The big chunks of tomato, I think, really make it. And then notice that when I fold the sauces over the basil leaves, it protects them so they don't get brown. I've turned the heat all the way off now. So again, the basil should stay really beautiful. Okay, so I'm gonna let this cool just for a couple minutes before we do some sampling because I don't want you to burn. And I'm going to switcheroo here because the next one I want to show you, and again, we're doing the finished products out here. Both of these dishes, they do take a little more time. The risotto is much better to work with once it's not hot. And so I made this earlier and now we get to play with it. And notice that I always have the bottle of wine just in case we need to add a little more pop. the wine at the very end, you could add to the end of your caponata, and you could even add it to your rice dishes. Cooking it down, of course, takes out all the alcohol, but a little splash of it gives it a real pop. Okay, so now we get to bring over our beautiful guest, Miss Linda. And so she is going to teach us how to use.
Suzanne, before you leave the caponata, like, did you use part tomato puree and part whole tomatoes?
I did. I
Part
did.
whole tomatoes?
Tomato puree and about 3 aromas.
Oh, okay.
Just for looks. Just for looks. I mean, of course, taste too. But I just think it's a fabulous way to add a little bit of color and flavor.
One other question.
Yes.
When you prepared your eggplant, did you have to worry about getting all the moisture out?
No.
Or towels? You just
No.
chopped it?
Yes. I'm so glad you asked that, Amy, because again, a lot of the chefs give you all these steps, and I've never done that. I've been working with eggplant for years and years, and I've never done any of that. And it comes out beautiful. Now, in fairness, I got really good quality eggplants. They are very shiny. Mary Tom, would you mind handing us that eggplant off the table? I want to show them. Thank you so much. You know, when we went shopping, you didn't get to see this, Amy, but we look for shiny. We look for firm. We look for heavy for its size. Thank you so much. And even in this particular recipe, she uses the Japanese eggplant, which is even more small seeds, you know, almost non-existent. And when we go to the back, you'll see when we cut into this, there's no seeds. So either olden days, we had a harder time growing good eggplants or something. I don't know, but I've just never had an issue with trying to get moisture out. And look at this dish. I mean, it's not wet. There's not any moisture that's seeming to be where it's not supposed to be. So I'm really excited that it's a beautiful dish without having to do that. Other questions?
Did you use red pepper flakes?
I did. I did. I'm sorry, I didn't mention that. In your recipe, when you're first making the eggplant, you sprinkle a little bit of red pepper flakes. And I was cautious because that can be spicy. Help me. What's the amount? Like half a teaspoon? Yeah, so tiny bit. Tiny bit. Okay. Other questions? I'm so glad you're asking.
Did you say you added shallots?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I did.
I don't think, is it on here? How much?
It doesn't say how much. It might just say onion and garlic. Yeah, and again, a lot of the recipes kind of go in different directions. I used,
Shallot, the big thing?
yes, it's a little, it looks like a little mini onion cross between an onion and a garlic.
I was thinking of something else. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
Good. Other questions?
The cocoa powder, is it the cacao? Do you use cacao?
Yes. In fact, I'll ask Mary to bring that in so you can see that.
What's the difference between cacao and cocoa powder?
Not much, just the amount of chocolate. So the Hershey's Special Dark is what we used in this one. But you know, really, you can see it's nice dark. It's unsweetened for sure. And you know, you can use what you have. I mean, if Mary, would you also mind showing us the dark chocolate container? It's the one that we always use at Powerhouse Bakery, and it's just a special dark. So it's a good one. Yes.
So you didn't use the saffron.
That is in the rice dish. Yeah. Good though. I'm glad you're checking on me. Yes, ma'am. I do use that one. She is. Thank you so much, Mary. So this is the special dark that we use. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? So beautiful eggplant. I can pass these around if you want to see them. Yeah, just grab them and pass. Okay, so I'm going to give Miss Linda some space over here. So come on over, Miss Linda.
Hi, my name is Linda. Ciao, sono Linda. I am originally from Sicily, which is the island bottom of the Italian booth. I was born and raised there, moved here about 30 years ago. And this is a very typical Sicilian dish. Sicily is in the middle of the Mediterranean. This dish is from the throughout the ages, Sicily was conquered by many populations. One of them was the Arabics. They brought this dish to Sicily, and so it's from the Arabic conquest, which is around 800 after Christ, Anno Dominus, And so this is a very rich dish that is very nice, and it was the main purpose was to be able to have food for people to take them with them to work in the fields, or during the kings when they were going to the hunt, they will take this type of food. It's very easy to transport. And so what I have, this is done usually with hand, but what I have today is this beautiful gadgets that my mother gave it to me a couple of years ago, and I brought some for her. This will make the round shape of the dish, and this will make the cone shape, a pyramid. There are reasons for round shape and cone shape. Round shapes because it reminds you of the orange, which is our main fruit in Sicily, and arancina, it's a version of orange. In Italian, orange is arancia, arancina is arancia. So this will remind of the orange, while this, if you go to the eastern part of Sicily, if you know, we have a volcano there that's called Etna, Mount Etna, and it's the tallest and most active volcano in Europe. It keeps us awake and happy all the time. So this will give that volcano shape, and it was devised for the reason to honor the mountain. And also, when it's very hot, you cut off the tip of this dish, and it simulates the steam coming out, just as our volcano does all the time. So that's we are very symbolic in our country. We are very colorful, so we have fun with food.
We knew that it had something to do with the mountain. We studied that, right, ladies? And we knew that it was really characteristic of Sicily. But I did not know that this one was reminiscent of an orange. Did anybody else read that? It's so cool.
If I can tell you, why
Okay.
not?
Show us
All
how
right.
it's done.
So she has prepared the rice based. So when you do the rice based,
Some bugs?
yes, I would love to, because I have been touching my face, and I don't want you to eat anything that I touch, because I'm still having cancer things going on. And
At first I thought it was just going to be the tool, but you have to scoop it up. don't you?
yeah, you use a lot your hands when you cook. When you cook in my house, you use your hands all the time.
And you have very short nails, which is good.
That's
the
part of
key.
cancer. I will not
Yeah.
bore you with that, but if you ask me in private, I'll let you know. So you can either do it with your hands, as you would do traditionally. You take the rice, you scoop it in your hand, and you make a nice shape like this. And so inside the rice, inside this little bowl-like shape, you would put your condiments, which
Yes.
are first, you will put your
I already brought it up here.
ragu. You can do it in different, you can do whatever you want with food. Please have fun with food. So we have several versions. And you tell me how you would like to build this one.
No, you tell me. I made
So-
the ragu.
So you will put a little bit of ragu, and then you will put your cheese,
And
and
so
you will put more around like this.
tell us why it's called ragu.
Ragu is usually, there are several versions of ragu. You go in Italy, when you go to Italy, every dish has a different version according to the area where you go. This is more bolognese. Bolognese ragu is it's done with ground beef. You choose the type of beef. Usually it's done with beef. Some people like pork, some people like other. And it's cooked, and it's and all the fluids are cooked, and so it's very dried, if you see. If you go down to Sicily, ragu is this, but in sauce. Something like this with a lot of it. And so the original recipe would have called for ragu to be cooked in a tomato paste, so that it becomes really rich. And I can tell you, if you guys like to know how to do that. In this case, you can just do this. You will put your cheese, one or two or more as you like, depending on the size. You want to keep it very moist inside. Then put a little bit of more ragu on top, and then you will cover this and trying to compact really hard so that your ingredients will not go anywhere.
Did I make the rice the correct texture?
Yes, ma'am, you do everything perfect.
Woo! It's hard to do. Ratatouille is, the eggplant.
And look,
it has,
see? Beautiful. When it's the perfect texture,
it sticks
it has a lot of gluten in there, so it will stick. And so once you have done that, don't worry if you have a little piece of meat sticking out. It's okay. If you don't like to see it, just put a little bit of more rice. You can always cover it. And then once you have this, the first thing that you want to do is to pass this in flour. There are several versions. If you go on the internet, they will teach you several things to do it.
The flour.
The way that I like to do it, and please don't have to follow my way, follow your way, it's to dip it in flour and kind of coat it. The flour will help also to keep that shape and to keep the arancino together. I like arancino. You know, I'm from the eastern part. I used to live right below the volcano, in between the volcano and the sea. Ah, beautiful.
Look how good that looks.
So look, it's beautiful already. And then you pass it in the egg. And make sure that you coat it really well. And then the last thing that you want to do is you pass it in the breadcrumbs. So the original recipe, of course, calls for lots of gluten. In my house, we are gluten-free. And so I use everything gluten-free. I use flour that is gluten-free, breadcrumbs that are gluten-free. Pass it in the breadcrumbs. And make sure that it's all nice and coated. You can make smaller balls. You don't have to make it this big. It's just up to you. You just have fun with it.
But you know what, Linda? We did read that they're quite large on the street food. Remember,
Yes.
ladies, in our video?
They are about this large.
Yeah.
About 8 to 10 centimeters, if you're familiar with the metric. And then the original recipe calls for deep fry. You can do whatever you like with it. She likes to do air fry. I do too. And I also like to do bake oven. I just bake it in the oven.
So cool.
So that's by hand.
Okay, now show us how you use
Okay.
the little press.
You will put lots of it in there up to where it gets like that. Put this second device in here, and this is gonna make the volcano shape. So you press it. Oh, let me do this. You press it. And so take a look inside. If you see there is a little bit of white that it's left. So I want to make sure that I have enough because I don't want it to break. Let's do it again. No worries. Don't get frustrated with food. It gets back to you. It gives you heartburn if you do. All right. So like that. Very simple. Now we're rocking. So now what you're going to do is you're going to put your ingredients. And you're going to do the same. Put a little bit of your meat. Put a little bit of your cheese. And put more meat. And then, may I?
You need the rice again.
Yes. Then you put a little bit of more on top and close it. Make sure that you have enough to create a nice close. When we make this in my house, we have a little factory. We have every person does one little thing.
Oh, that looks so good.
This is the version that you will find in Sicily most of the time. So especially when it comes with the ragu one. So when it's hot and steamy, cut that and you have that nice baby.
Okay, we're gonna cook them.
And then you do the same. First you go into the flour.
So I'm using rice flour, and I'm using. Remember when we did our shopping trip? We got the chickpea crumbs. So gluten free, and I was so excited that Linda's husband is gluten free. So all of these dishes are really so easy to switch around, and make, in fact, gluten free.
Yeah, when my husband came down with gluten allergy was a shock for me because I live on pasta, I live on pizza, I live on but it's easy to adapt.
And you have to tell the story that your husband learned your language.
Oh yeah.
So cool. Where did you guys meet?
He was in the Navy in Sicily. We have a Navy base there. He was there, and I did not really speak English. I didn't know anybody, but he ended up to be in the same room with me one night, and he didn't speak Italian. I didn't speak English, and he tried to converse with me, and I told him, "You either learn my language or it's not gonna happen." And we So this year we're gonna celebrate our 27th anniversary.
So make us a couple more if you would, Linda.
Okay,
And so, ladies,
I'll try the round one now again.
ladies, I'm using an air fryer here. Anybody have an air fryer at home? Yes. If you don't, no worries, because again, here, I'll hold this for you. Linda said she just bakes them. And so if I had known sooner, I could have made a whole bunch of them. But I thought, that's something that we can try at home. And you don't really need the tool because the trick is making this rice nice
Sticky.
and sticky. So look at your recipe on that for that arancini. How long does it tell you to cook?
We're gonna make something different.
10 minutes?
Let me have that.
10 minutes. So the risotto should be longer than that. The risotto should be,
Oh, yeah, 20 to 30, 20, 25.
I'm almost thinking 45. Take
To
your
make the
time,
rice.
slow temperature, add in your broth a little at a time. I like a quarter cup of liquid at a time. So you're going to add your white wine and the broth a little at a time and always stir. And in case you don't have time to be able to make it today, I really want you to know on your notes that it's critical to do it slowly. If you rush your risotto, it won't have the starchiness and stickiness. And I've made this before, so I knew it had to be that way. Now, I've also added a little bit of Parmesan cheese per your recipe there, and that also helps it be sticky. So it has olive oil, it has fresh thyme, and of course a little bit of salt. Look what she's adding.
So have fun with your food. I just added some sauce. Why not? If you like, you can make this with pistachio cream. You can make this with spinach. You can make this with just mozzarella and ham if you like ham and she's allowed to eat ham.
I say no ham.
I'm not allowed to eat ham, but you can make this with spinach and the ricotta if you like. So now we're gonna try to make the other shape by hand.
I made them with ricotta, and I loved it. It was creamy. It gets soft, but it doesn't run. So that's the way I did them when I was learning this whole dish.
What kind of gluten-free white flour are you using?
That's rice,
Oh,
rice flour.
Oh, it's rice flour.
Mhm.
So is it rice flour or does it say rice flour? Or how does
Well, rice is gluten free.
that-
Yeah, good question. So at Power's Bakery, we always have rice flour. That's one of our staples. So yeah. And see, look how she's kind of holding it and just letting it stick. That's the beauty of this rice being so sticky. I've seen risotto before served in restaurants where it's not cooked well and it's kind of hard and it wouldn't hold together like this. So, I feel like
Yeah.
that's a trick.
And also the type of rice that you might use might be
Oh
important.
yeah, arborio. And what's the other brand?
So the original rice that we use in Italy is called the nano, but here you can use the arborio. I use the arborio because it's a fat grain and it releases, it cooks slowly and it releases lots of that gluten that you need for the stickiness.
You bake it in the oven at the same time?
I bake it in the oven for about 25 to 30 minutes. Yeah, and you kind of, it's already cooked, really. All you need in the oven is to get that external breadcrumbs to cook a little bit and inside that cheese to melt. But it's,
The same temperature as
I put it around 370, 380, 400 top, but don't go over 400 because they might burn.
Suzanne, you put breadcrumbs in the risotto after you cooked it?
I
The
did not.
recipe says to stir 3 tablespoons of breadcrumbs into the risotto.
Right,
So
and
you
I
don't
did
do
not.
that, but you did. Okay, so
No.
that's not necessary.
Right, and that's why there's lots of ways to do risotto. I think they do that because they want to make sure it's sticky enough if you don't take time to cook it. So there's
And-
no need.
Yeah.
Look, mine turned out fine.
Yep.
Yep.
And if you cook with me, you'll see I'll make a mess when I cook.
But that's the fun of it, right?
So what's the oven temperature again?
Oh, if you want to bake it, you can do 380 to 400 top.
Now I've got the air fryer at 450, if that helps you. I mean, the air fryer, it kind of sets itself at that high temperature because it's going to go much faster. Linda, how long does it cook?
25, 30 minutes top, sometimes 20. If the temperature is higher, go 20. If you do 400, go 20. If you do 375, 80, do a little, it's okay.
I do this one next.
It works. It works.
Right? It works? Okay.
You just want to,
Okay, now you
The breadcrumbs is also part of the tradition because it looks more like an orange once it's cooked. It gives that yellow color like they wanted to do in the original
That's
recipe
so
from
cool.
the Arabs.
And so, have you used the garbanzo crumbs before?
I use gluten-free, and it depends. It's garbanzo or some
Okay.
gluten, some bread that's been, left out for a while, and just
Okay.
I do it myself. I do a lot of my stuff myself. And I try to cook from scratch most of my stuff. I don't like to buy things they are already pre-made if I don't have to.
But I love it when you can practice the recipe. And so you can kind of see what nuances you might miss. And so then when we do it here, there'll be really good talking points. So I'll try to, be ahead of the game and give us our plan for going forward. We're still going to be in the Italian theme. And so by tomorrow, I will give you the recipes that we're going to do next week. Does that sound fair? So we have two Italian heritage ladies. Is there other dishes that you feel like would really benefit the divas as far as representing the Mediterranean diet and, kind of what we're trying to learn about as far as healthy grains and eating more from the earth, but not being afraid of meats?
Oh, there is so much. It depends also on what you guys like. What people looking
Yeah.
for. And so we eat everything, and we do a lot of vegetables. Everything.
Good.
Like this dish, the caponata, is very Sicilian as well. Um, Several ways to cook vegetables. Grill them in the oven. So I have several recipes for that. I do lots of salads with potatoes, with beans,
Yes.
with eggs, um, or even pastas. Now gluten free.
True.
So I cook everything like my pastas. I make them with fresh tomatoes. So pasta with fresh tomato. It takes me 20
Yes.
minutes. So
I love it.
I can share with you.
So one thing I want to do is all of us have an interest, I think, in learning how to cook lentils. And in our study, we learned that lentils are something that's used as a first of the year celebration of good luck. Now, of course, we've missed the first of the year celebration, but I'd love to see if we could do something like that. And then something that celebrates mothers, because that's kind of around the corner. So if you think of anything like that, because I know there's so many symbols in Italian cooking and history, and there's so much around the matriarch of the kitchen, I feel like that would be really fun. So if you have time, I really wanted to be able to at least show you the chopping process and how we start the process. I know we only have about 5 minutes, so if you have to leave, I get it, but I have 2 stations set up in the back for us to at least see the ingredients in action. So if you want to put your plates there, there's a trash behind you. And I want us to be able to walk back. I'm going to just do the chopping for you so we don't necessarily have to get gloved up and prepped for that. All right, look at how pretty. They're cooked. They're crispy on the outside. I'm going to cut these and want you to get to see what they look like inside. And then I'll take you to the back so you can see what we did to start everything. So we're going to cut off the cone first. Ooh, it's hot. Put my glove back on. Nah. Because we're not going to eat these. Ta-da! Wow, look at that. So again, it was this cheese that we used on the inside, and you can see the steam coming out. So beautiful, right? And here I'm going to cut this one in half. So the picture we saw as the street food, it had a napkin kind of wrapped around it. But
I had that in Italy.
oh, okay, you did.
Did a walking tour.
Look at how beautiful.
Are there any restaurants here that make those?
Yeah, there is. There is. I found them.
How do you say where it's at?
I think that there was. You should look into the.
Awesome, ladies. Well, thank you so much for joining us for our cooking class of 2022. So appreciate you all coming.
So what's up for the.